I wanted to briefly and casually talk about two games I've played that I have no intention of doing full reviews on, so I thought putting them together in one video would be the best way to go about it. Red Dead Redemption 2 is an interesting one for me. I loved the previous game, and GTA 5 was one of my most anticipated games of all time, yet I didn't feel much of anything when this one was announced. Up until the release, I've been largely indifferent toward the game because it seemed like Rockstar was going to be like Bethesda and alternate predictably between Red Dead and GTA games, but here I find myself completely enamored with it. I'm about halfway through the game, and I'm still shocked by how different it is. It still retains the open-world sandbox style that Rockstar is known for, but it's structured like an RPG, and is less focused on explosive set pieces. Much like a good art film, this game has an obsession with making the mundane as exciting as possible. It's an unexpected and fresh change of pace for Rockstar. What you do in this game sounds really boring if I say it out loud. Horse riding, hunting, and scoping out potential hits. Of course, there are properly massive heist moments, but I don't find them to be the highlight. Instead, it's the smaller scale endeavors that stick out to me. There's a mission where you pretend to be Gone Idiot and disrupt the local booze economy with your fellow gang member, and another where you find yourself in the middle of a southern plantation version of Romeo and Juliet. GTA 5 was all about sheer landmass, and as a result, there was so much unused space in the game. Here, small encounters are constantly sprinkled throughout your travels, and even at the glacial pace I've been playing at, I still keep seeing new ones in areas that I've been in for hours. Everything here is portrayed in such a high level of detail that even the most tedious missions and menial tasks are captivating. The voice acting is disturbingly authentic, the animations are quite good, especially the horses, and the visuals are much better than the trailers made them out to be. I'm playing on PS4 Pro, where it runs at 1920 by 2160, and it uses TAA, which gives it a somewhat blurry presentation, but it still looks phenomenally good. Xbox One finally gets its chance to shine, though. It runs the game at full native 4K, and the footage I've seen looks amazing. It turns out that I was wrong. This is a pretty big leap forward from GTA 5. The gameplay is a step up too. Both Red Dead Redemption and GTA 5 have a floaty, detached feeling to them, and Rockstar finally addresses that with this game. Everything has a genuine heft to it, and while the shooting still has that bizarre DNA of the past two games, it feels a lot more weighty this time around. Story-wise, I have to be honest, even as someone who played the first game, it can be difficult to keep up with all the characters at times. As I progress more and more, though, I begin to think that was by design. You play as one of the three original members of the gang, and because of that, you're not a newbie working your way up from nothing with something to prove. As the game progresses, these characters naturally fill in their backstories by reminiscing on the past, and many characters that are new to the gang subtly transform as the story continues. There are some really colorful characters here, and seeing them smooth talk and scheme their way through the game has been highly enjoyable so far. This game is somewhat hard to talk about because there is no one thing to point at and say, this is it. It's a delicate, impressive balance of open-world RPG and story that all come together to make this one of the most immersive games I've ever played. Rockstar have underpromised and over-delivered. Then there's this beta for Fallout 76. I was completely uninterested in this game from the second it was announced, and the footage shown at E3 only further convinced me that Bethesda was phoning this one in. I also speculated that the use of the archaic, obtuse, and often ill-mannered creation engine in a multiplayer game would lead to many unforeseen consequences, and, well, that's exactly what happened. Xbox One had first dibs on the beta, and from what I saw, it went smoothly, but when it came time for the PC launch, things got messy real quick. I preemptively didn't even attempt to access the first beta period on PC, but those who did found that they couldn't connect at all, and there was even a nasty bug that was deleting all 50 gigabytes of the install files. I played starting with the second beta period, and while I had no issues logging into the game, I sure did have issues once I was in it. So first off, just like prior Bethesda games, Fallout 76 does not support 21:9 ultra-wide aspect ratios, which is fine. I understand that it's a niche thing and not every game is going to support it, but instead of giving me black bars, it insisted on stretching 16:9 to fit the entire screen. Within the game, there was no way of resolving this, but I was able to fix it by overriding the game with NVIDIA Control Panel. So that's not too big of an issue. Most people don't have 21:9 monitors, but you know what is becoming very common on PC? High refresh rate. One of the most notorious characteristics of the Creation Engine is that its physics are tied to frame rate. You'd think that for an always-online game, they'd have implemented some kind of server-side fix that keeps everything consistent for all players, or, God forbid, update the fucking engine, but nope, they have not. Just as in previous games, running over 60 FPS makes you faster the higher the frame rate is. You may have seen articles from the big gaming outlets talking about speed hacks, but that doesn't accurately describe what's going on here. Prior to a recent update, the game was by default V-syncing to your monitor's refresh rate, so someone like me with a 100Hz monitor was getting speed hacks out of the box. It was also possible to disable VSync in the INI files, which would, in turn, allow unlimited frame rates and make you move at incredibly high speeds. Setting aside that they still haven't fixed this shit, it tells us how little effort was put into testing this game. High refresh rate is common now. Did none of their playtest setups have high refresh rate monitors? So what's their solution to this? Lock everyone's frame rate to 63. I played after this fix was implemented, and it adds yet another layer of delay to the shooting, which I guess I'll talk about now. Fallout 4 was a step backwards in just about every way except for the shooting, which I remembered as being pretty decent, so I thought that that would at least make this game tolerable to some degree, but that didn't end up being the case. Some of that is probably me remembering Fallout 4 being better than it actually was, but I think Fallout 76 has worse gameplay because there's so many layers of latency going on. An FPS cap, VSync, engine issues, and now server latency too. Very frequently, I would aim my sights directly on an enemy's head only to miss them, and shooting at close range feels completely random. Since it's online, VATS had to be altered. Now it's just auto-aim with a percentage chance. It should be useless, but since aiming at close range is so impossible, it does come in handy from time to time. The enemies don't hold up much better than the gunplay. The AI is a joke, frequently ignoring the player, and everyone is glitching out constantly with broken animations. It's difficult to convey all of this gameplay stuff through video or words, but just know that this thing is truly awful to play in every way possible. This game was originally compared to Rust, but I don't think that's a great analogy. In practice, Fallout 76 plays like The Division, if The Division was a Fallout 4 mod hastily thrown together by the interns during their lunch breaks. It's structured almost identically, one large map and a main quest line that takes you from hub area to hub area, but has you do a few chores in each before sending you off to the next. In the 5 hours I played, the story was just following Vault 76's overseer and listening to her mundane holotape diaries. The map itself is just as boring, and while there's a lot of holotapes to hear, there's not much of anything to see. There's countless other issues with this game too, like the graphics that are obviously very outdated and hideous, or the simulator aspects like the thirst meter that are beyond obnoxious, but for me, the gameplay kills it from the onset because unlike Bethesda's single-player games, there is no story or characters to fall back on. I'm sure that relative to the effort they put in, the game will be profitable for them for the next 2 to 3 years, and when people ask about Fallout, they can point to 76 and say, here's your constantly updated Fallout game, but I really think this thing is going to damage their reputation, especially since the past 3 years were Fallout 4 and re-releasing Skyrim. No joke, this might just be the worst AAA high-profile game I've ever played. It's the worst BGS game I've played by a long shot, and outside of some weird old obscure stuff, it's probably the worst they've ever made, too. I'm truly baffled by Fallout 76. It just doesn't work. I played Fallout 76 on stream a few days ago. I'll leave a link in the description to the archive of that if you're interested. It should give you a pretty good idea of what the game is like and why I don't recommend it at all. Red Dead Redemption 2, on the other hand, is an easy recommendation to anyone that has a console capable of running it. If you're on PC, sorry, I don't know what the deal with that is, but I have a hunch it'll be at least a year before we see it. If you've played either of these games, feel free to leave your thoughts down below. Until next time, thanks for watching.